moved here, Larry's living across from the Symes and up a little bit, and he'd be there every day at noon at the Symes having soup. And come to find out, they used to do a big pot of soup every day, different soup, beautiful. And come to find out, at some point somebody said, "Oh, Larry gets free soup, right?" And I think it was just for that one day, but then years later, Larry was still getting free soup, you know. And nobody had the balls to tell him he couldn't have free soup. And he got free soup until they stopped doing the soup.
Was that at the Symes there?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I wish they would do
Larry
that soup
always got free soup.
He still got free soup. So
they never stopped
And he
serving
was
soup there.
grandfathered in to have the $5 breakfast.
even though there's no $5 breakfast on the menu.
Breakfast, Larry. $5. That's right.
And he never left a tip.
Well, actually, at the end of the year, Larry never would tip you daily. But at the end of the year, Larry would go and give $20 to people that would. He did. He did do that. He did do that.
I remember how whenever he'd eat at the Symes, he would never you cover your mouth, you know. Larry's just around, egg in his beard and open mouth, just telling stories about the Navy. And that's some of my fondest memories of Larry. Is just
Crazy.
he didn't care. He was
this is me.
he was gritty.
So I have a story when I first moved here. I didn't know anybody. Larry was one of the first people I met when I moved here, and I knew that he had been involved with the Assiniboine tribe, and my dad died at 1 in the morning, 2002, and Larry was the first person I called, and I asked him to come over. I asked him if he'd come over and pray with me, and I was leaving later that day to go back to Washington. And he said, "I can't leave because someone has given me a golden eagle and it's wrapped in burlap and it's in the tree." So I went over to his house and we prayed for my dad. And it was it was just a really nice, something I'll never forget. And he showed me how to take the local sage that we had gathered earlier, roll it in this ball. And I was really apprehensive to go to the coast to be with my sister because she thought I was a devil worshiper, literally. So it was not going to be a fun trip. Truly. And I was pretty stressed, but he reassured me and showed me how to do this rolling of the Artemisia sage and how I could do a little ceremony on the beach where my parents lived, and it sure made the trip and everything there better, but that was just a really neat thing that I got to share with him.
Did your sister settle when you saw her? Was she kind to you? No? No.
Oh.
Okay.
We're not
Just
talking
curious,
about
'cause I have
sister,
eight.
we're talking about.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. So Larry took my son Zach under his wing when Zach was the rebellious teenager that he was. Spent a lot of time with him. I always appreciated that, but I was so sad when Larry moved to Butte, but then so happy when he came back. Which a lot of people do that. They're just like, I gotta get out of this town. I can't stand it. But then they always come back. So I was really happy when he got back into town. Really, really.
Didn't he leave and come back twice?
Did he leave and come back twice? No, I think that was Antonio that came in. I mean, so many people have done that. Then they come back. Yes.
You said Butte. That reminds me of a story. So me and Mike were down and out a little bit, and we needed a little bit of work. And Larry had that place in Butte, and he rents out, and he needed a new roof on it. And Larry took us down there. He had us drive his truck. He, kept us fed the whole time. He had a buddy that had a house, and we were able to stay in the garage. It was awesome.
Right.
And we thought we were only going to get like $100 for this job, Dude, after doing this roof job, he was so kind. He gave us these $300, and we're like, this is way more than we ever thought that we can get for this. And it was just awesome, because we needed to.
And he gave us a bag of weed.
But he heard us saying, it's like, man, how are we going to be able to make our property taxes this year?
He helped us out
I
in
need
crunch
a
time.
put on, dude, and he went so much above and beyond what we thought he was going to do for us.
He was that kind of
He
guy.
definitely was that guy.
There's another time when I was working for Larry. I was helping him in his garage put a false floor in it. And he said, what do you want? When I was done, and I said, I want a knife. And so I said, I know you got a lot of knives, Larry. I want one of your knives. So he gave me this World War II trench knife. This World War II trench knife that's worth like $150. And I always say that it's definitely killed some people. I'm thrilled to have it, and it was an awesome gift for helping him out with the garage. That was a totally fair exchange, man.
Yeah.
Cool.
I've got a bunch of things in my office that he traded me for massage.
Yeah?
Me that story actually. Yeah, I only really heard about Captain Larry when I first moved here. Tony would refer to him as the captain. And so he's kind of like this mysterious person. This was like 20 years ago, right? But for the past 10 years, he's been my neighbor. So I got to know him, and he would tell me stories. I'd share meals with him. I'd drop him off a dish once in a while. He'd come over. I'm a nurse. He was diabetic, so he'd have me trim his toenails sometimes, right? Because that's how it's supposed to be, legally or whatever. But anyway, he'd sometimes share stories with me about some other people in town, and they were always about resilience, who worked really hard to get to where they were, or, really interesting exchanges. And he really valued that. And I want to say that it was kind of a shock to me that he had passed away, because I had just seen him like a few days earlier, wave to him. He was standing out front talking to a couple people. He looked just the same. And, he would go out every day up in Skunk Alley, not very far, and he'd collect like maybe 10 pieces of firewood or something and bring it down. And so sometimes I'd come home and there'd be like these random pieces of firewood all over my front yard, like just 3 or 4 of them. And it was Larry dropping firewood off in the front yard, which is really cool. I just add it to the firewood. And so, in our neighborhood, we just kind of have a little looking out for each other. Everybody's really independent, but he was definitely a very resilient being and respected that value of someone who's a hard worker. And I think you guys must have been really hard workers to get, so much.
I'm not a very hard worker. I used to be, not anymore.
We worked hard to get where we're at. Now we just praise Bob and slack off.
I like that
Church of the 70s.
We only work when it's absolutely necessary. And most of the time, that's never, so.
But we help out. And yes, Larry was so awesome a guy, and resilience was
and he'd
his
collect
key.
like 10 pieces of firewood every day all summer, but by the end of the summer, he'd have like a cord or 2 to last him all winter. And show you, you don't have to do it all at once. Like, you have cords, but, persistence every day, and you still get to the same place and have what you need.
Take note for when we get older.
Yeah. I'm gonna start
He was
getting
one
about
of the
10 a
first
day.
guys I met when I moved to Hunter.
Slow down.
When I went to, I don't know how many people remember, but it was like a cave at the time, and it was full of blades and books. I kept noticing all the blades around, and I said, well, so he ended up he made me a knife, and Took him a while, but I got a knife that he made. Oh, and I was gonna say, he came and played poker with us a few times. He didn't like the rules of it. But this one night, he comes over and he starts talking, somebody's kidding him about a woman looking him over at the bar at the Symes. And he says, well, she didn't know how old I am, you know. Maybe she did, Larry. You're not so old. I thought he was quite a bit younger than he was. And, but he was just, I was amazed at how he didn't want to encourage that young lady.
Yeah, because all the stories he told me about why he joined the service is like, I joined the service for one reason and one reason only. This began every story. It's like, okay, Larry, let's have it. He's like, I knew I could get laid. But every time he'd say, I joined the service for one reason and one reason only.
Peace and love.
Peace and love. That's right.
He was at the same love.
Peace of love.
Right.
He was like, I'm too old, I don't want to talk. Funny stuff, yeah.
I met Larry in a video class over at Sailor's Kootenai in the 90s, and I had no idea that he lived in Hot Springs until one of the students there, I think it was a forestry student, Richard Orton, he said, we went to Hot Springs, and he said, let's visit my friend Larry. And so that's when Larry had the house across from the Symes. And when I went in there, it was kind of like a gallery, all the stuff he had. I didn't notice a lot of knives, but the stuff that he had on his walls, the native art, and just various, he had a collection. And so that was what I enjoyed about, you know, visiting him, was just being there and seeing these things that reminded me of, yeah, so then when he moved over here, I was also a neighbor, and just occasionally go and sit with him. And one day not that long ago, he gave me a little piece of Pueblo pottery, a little bowl, and it was exactly what I remember from going on vacation with my family in the 50s in the plaza, where all the pottery people would be around the town square. And that's what I would get. I had a couple of pieces from way back, and so I was happy to get that. That was cool of him. And yeah, Larry was honest. I can tell you that much. He didn't beat around the bush, but he was harmless. Yeah, I was glad I got to know him. So.
I want to speak for a friend of ours that's not here, my friend Neil Valley, and he has known, he didn't call Captain Larry, he just called him Wyatt. He said he's known Wyatt for a long time, and that Wyatt is like a shaman, and that he has stories going way back of Wyatt officiating weddings and different things that are amazing. And he wanted to be here today, but instead he's lit a candle instead of prayer in his home in Potomac for Captain Larry Wyatt. But I just felt like I wanted to share that with you guys. So. Thank you.
I've been living right next door for a while to Larry, and he was always a great mentor for everybody that came through. When I was living with Jordan, we were roommates, and between me and my brother and everybody that I know and everybody that Jordan knows, we'd have all kinds of people in the yard, and he was always such a great mentor, especially when there was alcohol involved, and inviting them over to AA, and you know they still talk about him. You know, they still remember that invitation, and I always think of Larry when I think of the farmers markets that we were doing, and first time he tasted one of those paradise peaches, he was in love for them. Every time he saw me, he reminded me he wants some more of those peaches. So when I'd see him down the street, I'd kind of hide away if I didn't have a peach for him. I want to plant a peach tree actually somewhere right around there, maybe between the 2 yards or something.
That'd be nice.
It's awesome.
I lived in the house across from Symes, and for a couple years, and everybody would say, "You live in Captain Larry's house." I never did, get to meet him. I got the fireplace going, and it was billowing smoke, and this guy pulls up and says, "You're going to have a chimney fire." I've had many in that, and he introduced himself as Captain Larry, and we got to know each other. I worked in the shipyards, and so we connected through, the boats, and then it was probably about 6 months ago we went to an AA meeting. We'd been talking about it, and it was over in Paradise, and he picked me up, and we drove there, and there were, where he thought it wasn't there, and I think we went to every house. The determination that Francis was saying, that we literally were driving through people's yards. We went down to the Clark Fork down there, and that was a very memorable time, because that was a meeting right there. I got to know him. I've been over in his house and sat with him, and we've had some good talks, and he'll be missed. That's it.
Well, I met Larry on the Inland Passage from Alaska down to Washington. I was sleeping, my daughter and I. He was doing bead work. He was a captain. He wasn't called. He was called Wyatt. He was a tugboat captain, and proud of it, and happy, and we became partners for about 4 years, and I met more people I lived in Berkeley at the time, and then moved up to Mendocino County, both in California, and he knew where the very best meetings were at that time, everywhere. In the Mission, there were the most fascinating people in Santa Cruz, Point Arena. Larry just knew where things were happening, and I met more people, more Native Americans, more. I don't know how he could come into a town when he didn't even know anyone, and suddenly there was the most fascinating. This person, that person. He was really pretty amazing that way. The way he could start a friendship over a story. He was an awfully good storyteller.
He mentioned you to me, probably other people too, but one time I went to visit him, and the first time I think I went over there, and he lived over here on First Avenue, and he brought out a picture of you. I know he had a lot of love for you in his heart, because he made sure that people knew that.
Yeah.
Well, he was great. He was, I had been married for over 20 years, and Larry was the person who brought me back into love and romance. I was really being cautious, and even though I hear how crusty he was very gentle.
One thing about Larry too is that everyone loved him, but he was all alone. And we'd invite him over for Christmas dinner sometimes, and over the holidays. And that always meant the world to Larry, being a part of something, You could tell that he appreciated it so much when you threw the invite out for him to come over and spend time with you, and it was the holidays, and he'd otherwise be sitting alone in his home, And I miss Larry. I'm gonna miss him a lot, but He was a good man, and he taught me a lot of things. And he was a great person all around.
Larry loved animals, and he had a very special gift with cats. And when he lived in Mark, and I know him from Butte, and he had, I think, every Thanksgiving almost that he lived in Butte, he spent with us, didn't he? I think. And lots of gatherings that we had around the fire and so on, and we always considered him one of our most interesting friends. Yeah. Captain Larry. But we, there were this mother, I always participate in spay-neuter programs where we are, and there was a wild cat and all these little kittens on the campus, and he lived right near the campus. And we took those kittens and that mother cat and had them spayed and neutered, and we were going to try to find a place for them, and Larry said, "Oh, they know me, I'll take care of them." And that cat was so wild, nobody could get near that cat, but I'd go past, driving past Larry's house, because I'd walk my dogs out there, and here's Larry climbing the stairs, and that mother cat was just following him like she was a tame puppy dog. And Larry did a ceremony. I don't know who's going to do ceremonies for our animals now when they die, and he did many ceremonies, but my favorite one was when he did with the sage, and we were burying our little dog Max, and it just so happened that a neighbor came by, and the neighbor's nephew was studying religious philosophy in some Harvard or something, and he was really into people's ceremonies around death. And we didn't know that. We just said, "Oh, come on in, Jim and your friend, we're burying our dog." And Larry did this whole ceremony with the sage and for our little dog. And the guy from Harvard, he was just his eyes were so big, and I just think he was so happy to be there and participate in that ceremony for the dog that Larry did. It was great. I'm sure he still remembers that. And I think his cats here are being taken care of. That's my understanding. They're being fed. I hope so.
Can I tell the pie story?
Yes, I think so.
So, if I can remember this, and Nora...
I'll fill in if it's...
So Nora and I were talking, we'd never met, and she had said that she, so Nora, the base food here, Linda Landrum, cooked, and Nora and her partner, Mark, took care of. So a thank you to them for the food. So we were talking, and Nora mentioned something about wanted to buy at Camas 1 or 2 cherry pies, because coming here previous, you'd had this Captain Cherry Pie.
Yeah.
So as we were talking, I said, well, there's a gal in town named Loria, and she's a fabulous baker, and Camas was built, the store was built around her bakery, and she used to make cinnamon rolls here at Alameda's, blah, blah, blah. So I called Loria. I said, "Loria, would you be willing to bake a carrot cake for Larry's wake?" And she said, "Well, I'm making cherry pies right now." She said, "How about if I make cherry pie?" And she said, March 14th is National Pie Day, P-I Day.
All right.
And it also happens to be Albert Einstein's birthday and Loria's birthday. Which she'll be very mad that I told everybody it's her birthday. But oh well. So that's the pie story. So she made 4 beautiful Captain Cherry pies. She suggested whipped cream, so I made some whipped cream. Is there anybody else? And
I got
people
one more.
can keep sharing afterwards.
His place up there, the place after, where he's at now. I was there maybe a year, give or take, and sitting there, and he had a hawk. As you can tell, I like birds. He had a stuffed hawk up there, and I was just marveling, looking at it, and I says, "Hey Larry, can I take a picture of that?" And he says, "Yes, but you're gonna have to ask permission." I got the picture. Yeah, yeah.
I'm kind of new in town, and I was really admiring all the people who are elders or almost elders. And I was at Buck's one day. I had this vest on, and I was, looking at vegetables, and he comes up, and he didn't tell me his name or anything, but he started reading my vest and telling me every community that these pieces were from.
Oh.
And I don't even know if he traveled or imported, but for some reason he seemed like he totally knew. And he went through my whole vest of all the pieces, and he was telling me about it.
Wow, that's cool.
Well, Larry and I had a mutual friend, his name was Virgil. And when I first came to Montana, 45 years ago, I fell in love with Virgil. He was one of those lady charmer guys. And he was gorgeous, actually.
Lady charmer.
Yeah, he was a Vietnam veteran. He had long braids down to his waist. Anyway, he was awesome. But Larry knew him. I don't know if he knew him in Vietnam. I don't know, maybe. But he had a picture of him on the wall of his house here in Hot Springs. And I said, where did you get that picture of Virgil? I said, he was my first love 45 years ago. And he said, Virgil and I have been friends for a long, long time. And I said, could I take a picture of that? Because he was, in the picture, he was 17 in Vietnam. He joined the Army when he was 15. Went to Vietnam, and so he had this picture of him with his gun and the name of his Army unit. And he let me take a picture of it, and then he told me that when Virgil was dying in the hospital, he wanted to just go out and die in the mountains, and Larry was willing to go with him, take care of him, make sure he had food and water and was warm. And they wouldn't let him out of the hospital though. So he stayed with Virgil until he died. But he told me that story. But, so I have that picture of Virgil with his rifle above my bed. I'm really grateful to Larry for having that picture. I don't know what happened to the picture. But I have a copy of it. And he would give me pottery like Mary was talking about. He gave me some Tarahumara pottery. He gave me a book about the Tarahumara Indians, which I found fascinating because I do pottery. And he was a very interesting fellow, really interesting. We've lost quite a character we had here in Austin. And this is a nice ceremony. I'm sure he's happy about it, watching us somewhere.
That reminds me of the story I heard about when the Cuban crisis happened. He was sent on computer and stand on guard. He was the only one there. And how frightening that could have been for him. And he did his duty. He stood there and stayed there. And I don't know how it finally ended, but he's still alive. He was still alive anyway. But he was definitely a character of his own, and I like that about him. He just said it like it was and told it like it was, and he was kind of rough and tough if he wanted to be, and he was just as sensitive on the opposite side. And so I enjoyed him a lot. He had a lot of other stories. He was quite a bit into the Buddhist prayers, and I think he was probably very kind
during his lifetime. He was kind of, when he was younger, he kind of had a little, it was kind of rough and tough for him. But I think he did very well, and he liked the title captain. He always, you know, called me captain. So he should be honored with that title.
And I've been hearing a lot about honor, and yes, he was a very honorable man. And but in order to be an honorable man, you got to be honoring. And he was very honoring, but because he stuck to his beliefs so much,
Right.
and that's what makes you honorable, because you're like, this is, I mean, you ain't gonna disturb me from what I know and believe, and if I see you do stuff, I'm gonna tell you, hey man, come on, dude. He said it how it was, however he saw it was, that's why he said it, and that made him honorable and honoring.
Good one.
Well, I hope we'll continue to share stories around the fire. It might be a nice time now to partake of the food that Linda, I forgot her last name? Landra made, and thank you. Other people brought contributions too. And the Alameda was so kind as to just really provide a lot of little things that we needed, as well as making really fabulous coffee. So I think people should go ahead and eat, and I'm going to start the line because I promised Linda I would make her a plate. Yes, go ahead.
So your basket of sage.
Oh yes, so that sage there is for people to throw into the fire, and maybe like with the rosemary, if you have a memory or something that you'd like to just send to the heavens, grab some of that sage and throw it into the fire as you're eating or as you're leaving or whatever. So, but we can be here as late as we want today, and we might build up a big fire if it gets cold. So
Now, what was the ashes? What's going on with the ashes?
Oh, thank you. I forgot. I meant to say that. So we had, I had been given the idea that maybe taking Larry's ashes to Lone Pine might be something that could be done. But as it happens, Larry's ashes, we don't have them yet, but we will be getting them. And what's going to happen to the ashes, we talked to Tony, who felt that maybe a better way to send Larry's ashes off into the world would be to take them to Dog Lake over here. And so we have some sweetgrass, a sweetgrass braid that we're going to give to Tony to burn, and Tony will take the ashes, and I don't know how the word can get around.
Well, my brother posted a thing on Facebook. Because my brother called here, Mike, and $2,500 to get the ashes. We started a fun thing to try and get those and spread them mid. But we don't know where that. So,
Right.
do you guys need donations to get
No,
the ashes?
the money's available.
Larry has money, it's just legally, it has to be, there has to be an estate set up. So there is money for that, it's just
a matter of being able to
getting the whole thing going.
It was just a matter
keep
of
everyone posted when we can get the ashes, because I'd love to be there when they spread the ashes.
Right, we can do that. Maybe I can make sure that the word gets out, and somebody mentioned the military too. Yeah, he was in the military, and so I know that there might be a ceremony that the Vietnam veterans
might want to do for him. I think at Fort Harrison.
We should have the 21 gun salute.
And so forth. Yeah, that
Oh,
was
at
no
Fort
problem
Harrison?
for 21.
Oh, at Fort Harrison? Okay, that was an idea that we had known about. So
When I talked to Greg Davis, the coroner, he was going to make sure that Larry had a proper military.
Everyone here, if you hear
So-
Then everything got complicated, and
right.
a lot of it is out of his hands.
Well, maybe we can do both things. Maybe I can talk to the coroner and see if he would be willing to take, or if there's somebody here that wants to do the military.
Go together.
Yeah, right. So we'll follow up on that. So I'm sorry I meant to say that, and thank you for reminding me, but yeah, there's money there available to do it. It's just kind of bound up in the legal process, but that'll happen in the next, within a month, I would
And
assume.
Ralph at Foster's Funeral Home, he knows how to do that really well. If you
Oh.
need any help.
Oh, to do which now?
The military with the ashes all together.
Oh.
He does that quite often.
Okay.
With it's a Catholic cemetery there.
Right.
Mission, but he does it all.
Okay.
Real good.
Oh, well, that's good to know. So we'll see what we can, how we can make all of that happen. So, but it'll be within the next month or so.
Mortal life shall cease.
And they all have sage on their
Captain Larry. Through many dangers, toils, and snares, I have already come. I shall possess